And we're back. We're back,
Hello,
Liz.
hello. We made it. We survived the library conference. We survived golf. Barely survived golf because I tripped and fell down and busted my knee and busted my shoulder. And I just laid there in the water and everybody run over to help me. And I told them, get away from me, get away from me. I was just holding my leg, hoping it wasn't broken,
Oh
and
no.
crying. But I was soaking wet because I was in a big puddle because the tsunami came. As you know, you were driving in it the whole time. And
Oh yeah, it was nasty. It was
oh,
nasty.
but we got through 14 holes, and everybody had to seem to have a good time. And everybody else, everybody that wanted to left and ran on, got in the car and went home. And the diehards stayed and drank beer and told stories and talked about, the old days. So we had a good
Today we're
time.
talking about the author adventure. So
We
you
are, we are. So I thought maybe, we say shameless plug. We always want to do a shameless plug, especially for our new book, The Author Adventure, 5 Steps here. So this is our new paperback. It's available in ebook too. So be sure to go and check that out. But I also wanted to talk just a little bit about distribution. We've talked, we know what the big major platforms are. Everybody knows that's Amazon, Barnes and Noble, iBooks, Google Play or Google Books. Those things are out there, Ingram Spark. But the other thing people really need to think about is who could buy more than one copy of your book? Who could buy multiple copies of your book? Is that a church? Is that a corporation? Is it a school? Maybe it's a private school versus a K through 12 public school. Private schools have a little bit more money and they have a little bit less, they don't have as much bureaucracy to go through. Usually somebody, the head teacher or the headmaster, or there's, the librarian there at a private school can make that decision. So maybe
sure.
they buy 30 books for their kids,
What about
maybe.
associations, Liz?
Yeah. So
Building real estate. There's always these continuing education organizations that support organizations that need continuing education. So
right. So marketing, accounting, if you've got a nonfiction book for sure, you want to
medical.
target those people, medical, hospitals. I mean, all hospitals have gift shops. They have, children's hospitals, especially, that's a special place. Maybe get somebody to sponsor and give 100 books away to a hospital because kids are coming in and out. Sometimes the kids are there and they're staying there for a long time. And so they come around usually with a cart that's got either a bunch of books or toys or games, something to entertain the kids. And we go and read to the kids too. So, yeah, so if you've got a children's book, I mean, consider children's hospitals, museums, science museums, there are a lot of museums for children specifically that are kind of targeted, natural history, things like that. And so depending on what you're writing about, you may be writing about dinosaurs. You
What
may
about
be
rodeos?
rodeos for sure. Yeah, you may be writing about snakes or dogs or whatever. So there are pet
Yeah,
rescue programs, and
zoo.
yeah, the zoo for sure. So lots of different opportunities. You just got to think outside the box. You got to be real creative. And we're going to talk. One of our guys here with us today, he's really creative, and so he's doing some fun stuff too. And we we're hoping some of our authors from last week will jump on with us. But Beth got a big event this weekend. Her retreat, our women's retreat, is coming up, and Kathleen's counseling as usual, and so she may jump on here toward the end. And and so Ed's
Hope to get some feedback though. It's always nice to see a friendly face,
all
and
right.
welcome to the party, Bill. Thank you for
Yeah,
being here.
good to be here with you. I got a new light so you can see my face a little better.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you
I was
so
always
much.
kind of in the dark before. So
Well, it's not a bad thing to be in the dark. However, it's nice to when you can come out into the light, right?
that's right. Good metaphor there.
So you did some amazing work at the library conference, and I really truly enjoyed sitting down and having a conversation with you about some of the things that authors go through. And I just wanted to personally thank you for that and the opportunity to actually meet and greet and sit down and actually spend some time together.
Yeah, that was the first time we'd met in person. With the pandemic, you don't meet anybody in person anymore, but
Yeah.
now we get to. And so it was fun seeing you in Austin and everybody else as part of the Dynamic Authors group that Liz and you all put together. It's a very interesting collection of writers, all different.
Do you see Ed in the background back there?
I do. I do.
Okay.
I'll bring him in. Here's another wonderful
face.
addition to the crew. So, Ed, how you doing?
I'm doing fine, sir. How you doing?
Excellent, excellent. I was just telling Bill here that it was really nice to be able to catch up with you guys and get to meet you face to face and spend some time with
Yes,
everybody and enjoy your company. So, thank you. You made it back okay, and everything worked out well.
Yeah, everything went well. We stayed. I think we stayed an extra day or so, just because my wife had some friends who came to town to see her, so we stayed and spent some time with them. And then we're back. We came back in. I've been ripping and running since I came back. I'm in my office editing some stuff for the show right now. So it's been good.
Yeah, I was telling Liz I was trying to get some edits done for the show so we could share some of the interviews that I had with you guys, and I'm not quite done with that process yet. However, it will get completed and we'll be able to share that out. But it was really wonderful to catch some, content and have some information and share it out with everybody as well. So, and continue to share it out.
Yeah. Well, no, hey Russ, when it comes to editing is fun, but it's very time consuming. As you know, you got to take like 5 hours and make it into 15 minutes, and you're like, oh. So trust me, I understand.
You can appreciate it. You can appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Well,
are you doing well?
I'm doing great. Doing great. Good to see you again, Ed.
Yes, sir. Good to see you too.
Yeah, I'm kind of getting connected with Yake Smith. Is that his name? I'm trying to remember the director that I told you about that's going to look at my screenplay.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah, African American director. He's won a lot of awards. He's in Austin, and a guy I met. I was just talking about the novel, and then I said something about I had to learn how to write screenplays to edit the novel and tighten it, but that I had written one. He said, "Tell me about it." And he said, "Oh, I know a director who's going to want to do that movie." Just like that. That was a big hook that happened at the Texas Library Association conference that had nothing to do with the novel, but it sort of related. And so we're connecting, and he's interested in taking a look at it, seeing whether you might want to do it. So,
congratulations! Hey, Liz, I want to thank you for inviting us down. We learned a lot of, talking to a few people. We learned a lot about about publishing, about the authors, way the authors could get things done. I know my wife got some really good notes for herself. So thank you so much for inviting us down there.
Yeah, it was great. I was so glad to see y'all. I'm sorry we didn't get to visit more off-site because we were so busy during the day, going back and forth and talking to people. But that was one of the reasons we wanted to kind of recap here today, because we're always talking about the author and adventure and the experience, and we want people that are listening in, that are thinking about writing, to just know what the different options are and what some of the opportunities are. And and sometimes they're good and sometimes they're bad. I don't think we talk to as many people. Mary's on too, I think. So, we might not have talked to as many people in Austin as we did in Fort Worth the previous year. But like Bill said, it only took that one call, that one introduction, that one person that you talk to that knows somebody else. And it can lead to a whole different thing or a whole new thing. So that was really good about it. And so that's one of the reasons Russ and we just wanted to jump on and kind of get your thoughts about your experience, because it was the first time for y'all. Beth and I had been to Boar, but and we had a little bit of crazy stuff happening up front, and but just because my face is on the post office wall now as a terrorist, And then when they opened up that bag, it said Assassin's Manuscript. So they thought, okay, there's a hitman here at the library conference. I wonder who they're after. I mean, who
I don't
they...
remember hearing that part of the story, that it was Bill's
yeah,
books that were there.
It was Bill's book that was in the suitcase that got left on the street. And and the security guys found it. And I'm sure when they opened it up, so they took all the books out and put the suitcase in the safe in case it blew up. So, not only, so all of us, so I was like, we're all over 60, almost all of us are over 60. I mean, this is what I'm sure when the guy came to the booth and saw all of us there, he was going, this is the terrorist group. I mean, it's just hysterical. But anyway, so I think Mary's back there somewhere, but I don't know if she can get in or not.
She's on LinkedIn, but not on, she's not using the StreamYard link.
She says she clicked on the link that you sent. She just texted me, but she's somehow not popping in.
So let me try again. Let me try to give.
I sent her a message and said use a Chrome browser. So
this link.
Yeah.
StreamYard.
Hey Russ, did you pick that card for your son yet?
Sorry?
Did you pick the card?
No, he had two other vehicles that he was looking at, and they both fell through. And then he purchased one over the weekend in Houston, so he didn't have to go anywhere. So he's already in Houston. He's already picked it up. Yeah,
save you a trip.
Well, yes and no. So what he did was he said, "Hey, would you take this dog?" He rescued a dog. And he's going to, it's a little more active than what he can use in town in Houston. So he says, take this up to the farm. And the farm is up on the Port Angeles, up near the peninsula of Washington State. So I'm going to be driving from Houston to deliver the dog to his mother up there in Washington State. So that's my next adventure. I'll be doing that in the next couple of weeks and driving up to Washington. So,
okay,
yeah,
I'll think about you.
well, it's good to get out and create your own adventures now and then. So it's really nice to be able to do that.
Okay,
I should be documenting all this stuff too. So
yeah.
But
that's right.
I have more trips ahead of me, Ed. Thanks for asking.
Okay, I'll look for you. I'll look for your podcast on that.
Perfect. But it's really fun to get outside and travel around and see the countryside now and then. So
yes, sir.
Here's Mary now. Here she is.
Who that?
Hey, you're on, Mary.
Hi. Hey, there she is. So yeah, Mary, we were just kind of recapping. I just wanted to get y'all's impressions, what what was a surprise to you, what you were glad to know, what you've learned that you didn't know, what, maybe even what was disappointing, because we want to tell the real truth. I mean, we tell people, you're not going to get rich with one book. You're going to have to do something else. You're going to have to speak, or you're going to have to go out and read your book, or you're going to have consulting or some other kind of something, or you're going to have to do a series of books before you can, before you can make a full-time living. So, don't quit your day job. I mean, we want to tell people, traditional publishing is great, and it still exists, but, it's going to take you longer. If you want creative control, maybe you need to choose self-publishing or something else, or partner publishing. But it is always back to the individual and what they want to achieve. So, and Ed, you were kind of there more as an observer. I know you were working the whole time, but and taking video and taking photos and things like that. But what was your thought? Did you have any thoughts before you came? Well, and were those expectations met, or did you just come with an open mind to say whatever happens, happens?
Well, I came with an open mind because I've never been to a librarian convention before. Boy, I will never look at librarians the same way again. I'll tell you that.
There are all kinds, aren't there? All ages. And they're a little wilder. They're a little wilder than you would think, aren't they?
A little? Okay, that's a nice way of putting it. It's just like when they said the convention is now open, and those people just came running in. It was like a marathon. I was starting, and they were like, I was like, wait a second. I never thought librarians did all this kind of stuff. But it was very interesting with that, and just seeing and listening to the business of publishing a book, of publishing, was very interesting to me, since I'm not an author. My wife's the author, but this as an observer and then listening to the people break it down is all. I always tell people when I speak, everything has a process. No matter what it is in life, it's a process. And to truly understand and respect it, you have to know the process. I'm not an author, so I don't know the process. So being there and listening to some of the people talk about the process of publishing, or author and stuff like that was a good learning experience for me. I learned a lot. I asked questions. I always ask questions. That's just who I am. And so for me, as a non-author, being there for the first time, I learned a lot about the business of publishing, which has a lot, like everything's interconnected. It had a lot to teach me from my perspective as a filmmaker, right? Because as you know, in films, it always starts with words because you need a script, and a lot of times the scripts come from a book. So it's kind of interesting just listening to the people talk about that. I learned a lot. I have to say I did learn a lot. And so now as I'm shooting right now, I'm shooting my web series right now, and I'm writing the scripts for the people. I have a different perspective. I have an additional perspective on writing. Mm-hmm. And I always liked writing. I always said I wasn't a writer because in school my teacher always tried to tell me, "Oh, Mr. Herman, you write very well. I like the way you write." So but that was a learning experience for me, which was a really good one. Mostly now that I'm writing more of the storyline for my web series because I wanted to go in a particular direction, and I figured the only way to get it to go in that direction is if I write it. Right.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Well, and that's what we talked a little bit earlier about creative control. If you want creative control and you want it to go a certain way and be a certain way, then you really may have to look at self-publishing or partner publishing, because traditional publishing, they can change the name of your title, they can change your character names, they can say, we want it to go, you need to write it more this direction because we're trying to reach this audience, and we know this audience is more, you need to add some more sex, Bill, if it's yours, or not add or take it out, depending on whatever it is you're writing about. And so it really does come down to a little bit to that creative control and time, and how much time somebody's got. Well, Mary, what about you? What was you did tell me one thing that you were glad you came, but you want to share that, or you want to share some other stuff with our listeners today?
Well, I guess my only comment, Liz, is that I was glad to see that reading is alive and well in Texas. That was very encouraging. And I also noticed that the big attraction seemed to be "Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus," and the big pigeon. And so if I go again, I'm either going to get a big blow up pigeon, or I'm going to get pigeon balloons and take a helium tank with me.
I love it.
Yeah, like you say, or costumes or bears or whatever. I mean, your story's about a bear, so you could legitimately take a big bear, and have that bear. And I'm going to tell you that people are going to want to take their picture with that bear. If you had a big stuffed bear, or even a stand-up bear.
If I do it, I'm going to get I'm going to get a blow-up bear, because the kind of you need a bear really full size,
right?
Too big to fall in.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to take a helium tank and take teddy bear balloons and blow them up. We'll see. It was very interesting.
Yeah, but it is interesting. But that's what you see. You can see that that those big publishers were all there too, and little publishers were there. So there was the solo author that was there. There weren't probably any other groups of authors like us that were there. I mean, we got a lot of comments about that. Well, y'all are here together as a group of authors, and 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 that seemed to be really different to a lot of people. And we got a lot of comments about that. And then obviously the big publishers were there, the Scholastics, the Simon and Schusters, the McGraw-Hills, and they have hundreds of books, and authors, but they wouldn't be continuing to do that if they weren't making any money. They wouldn't be putting those books out there if somebody wasn't buying them. So that is, like you say, at least encouraging in the fact that, books are not going away. And people ask me all the time, are ebooks going to take over? Or audio books going to take over? No, I don't think so. And we're actually seeing a curve back, especially with children's books, where they're buying both. They're buying the ebook to entertain kids in the car, or when they're traveling, or when they're waiting on Susie or Johnny's dance thing, or Johnny's soccer game, because most people have more than one child. A lot of people have 2 or 3 kids. And so they got to entertain them while the other kids are doing certain things. And so we find that if they like either the ebook or they like the paperback, they buy the other version, because the kids now want to have it. They want to hold it in their hand. They want to be able to touch it and feel it, just like we do, like adults do. We like to hold it in our hand. We like to make notes. We like to underline or write in the margins if it's something that, we're trying to learn. And kids are the same way, So, reason I'm writing these Cleo Hearn children's book, everybody said, well, don't you have a younger version? Because we had the middle school version, which was the brown book on top there, but it was really more for 7th and 8th grade. And so everybody kept saying, well, do you have a younger version? Do you have something with, pictures and just a few, sentences a copy? And so that's what we did. We basically took those and made younger versions of, or versions for preschool, 4th, 5th, 6th graders and up. So, but you never know where kids are at. Like Mary's got a granddaughter that's probably reading 2 or 3 years ahead, right, Mary? I mean, Martha's not reading at, her age level. Because y'all been reading with her all her life,
Yes, she's reading Hank the Cowdog.
Right, exactly. So, which is probably what, 2 or 3 grades ahead of maybe where she
At
is
least.
actually. And so, or 4 or 5 grades ahead. So that's the thing. And then, of course, you got kids that are in 8th and 9th grade that are reading at a 2nd or 3rd grade level. So you really just got to choose your market. You got to say, hey, I'm going to write to that 6-year-old to, 12-year-old group or 10-year-olds. And focus on that. And if there's going to be some rollover on both sides, but you're not going to get everybody, because you can't market it to everybody. None of us can market to everybody. So that's why we got to choose that primary audience and a secondary audience to focus on. Well, Bill, what were some other things that you found, or that you liked or didn't like, or
Discovered along the way?
Or discovered, on the journey,
it was a good experience. It was a good experience. It would have been helpful to know that there were so many elementary school librarians, because they were not interested in a novel about a hitman who becomes a minister, because it's not their age group. And so that would have been helpful to kind of get a little better idea how many adult librarians would be there. But, we didn't know when we went. And the other thing I would do if I were to go again like this is I would just give books away instead of trying to sell them, and encourage people to put them in their libraries. I did finally the last day go around and start handing out flyers and saying, you really want this book in your library, and look at it. And I would pitch it. And the pitch was always catchy and got their, and within 30 seconds, I was hitting them with what it was. And they were going, oh, this sounds good. And I was doing it as buy one for your library, then I'll give you one free. But I'd probably even give more away. Just get them out there. That's what I learned while I was there.
Liz, I'm going to say thank you and goodbye to everybody. I've got to go do something else, and I'll talk to you a little bit later, okay?
Okay, sounds great.
Bye,
Thanks,
everybody.
Mary.
Nice to see you. And it was
it.
nice to meet you, and Russ and Bill, it was great to see you. Just give Jane my love.
I will.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay.
Take care, everyone.
Okay.
Okay, and so Russ, I guess you haven't really said, besides getting to meet everybody in person, what was your impression about things, Russ?
My impression is that there is an audience for everyone. Every story has an audience. Like we said, every grade level has a place, and we all need to really think about how we can actually serve and create value with our content and create something, like you were saying with distribution. It's out of the box thinking. Who you expect might want your book is the first place to start. And also, if we can expand beyond that and start thinking creatively and think about, well, who else might be interested in this content and this information? Because when we think about it from a different perspective, we can actually see opportunities rather than obstacles. And walking around, meeting some tremendous people. And I was really surprised by the amount of technology that was there unrelated to the actual writing piece, and supporting the libraries and supporting the inventory of books and some of the things that go along with that. So it's really about diversity and how you can actually create a story around what you're producing and who you're serving. And I think that's really important to recognize is, you have a framework in your head, and other people might see it differently than you, and talking to those individuals are going to be absolutely important for your future.
Yeah, well, and the other some of the interesting statistics are that 85% of people go into a library, 35% of people go into a bookstore. Everybody assumes that bookstores, that it's the opposite, that 85% of people are going into a bookstore, which is not true, and that nobody's going to the library anymore. So why should I even worry about the libraries? Because nobody goes to the library. Well, let me explain this to you. Anybody that's got children is at the library, okay? Any mother that's got more than one child, or even one child, is at the library during those years of 3 to 6 or 7 or 8, because they're looking for things to do with their kids, and that's a safe place for them to go. It's a controlled space. They do have authors. They do have books. They have these children's areas that they're creating, like with technology, like Russ and Ed are both involved in, and they have those stations set up where kids can get on, or they've got ebooks. I mean, the thing about ebooks is a library is going to buy an ebook, and they're going to maybe pay $20 or $30 for that ebook, not $1.99. Because they're licensing that book, like Overdrive and Kobo and Rakua that Bill was talking about earlier. Those are the ebook platforms, and they sell those books on a license. And they automatically are set up. So if they have 5 books in their library and it gets to book 6 and somebody makes a request for book 6, if 7, 8, 9, 10, if 4 or 5 more people come in and want to reserve that book and they don't have any copies, it automatically goes out and buys another copy and pulls it into the library. So there are a lot of behind the scene things that are happening with technology, like you're talking about, that we just have to become more aware of and be sure that those platforms have our books, and those are kind of the next steps. We always try to get on Amazon and Ingram and Barnes and Noble first, especially in the US, because those are the big platforms. And if somebody hears about your book, Bill, if somebody heard about your book, even though they didn't buy it there, and they go, oh, well, there was that interesting guy with the Assassin's Manuscript or the Assassin's book, they're going to go and look it up on Amazon or Barnes and Noble, or they're going to Google it, and your name's, like you say, going to come up, and all your stuff is going to come up, and any interviews that you've been able to do are going to come up.
In 41 countries.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why, some of those things are, more important, and there's a lot more going on behind the scenes. And, and that's like Ed said, it's a process. And so it's like, well, what's the next thing? Well, the next thing is trying to get on more ebook platforms, or the next thing is trying to get that audio book or that script.
One thing I wanted to ask, Liz, to everybody, and you're talking about audiobooks, is I didn't notice, and I guess it makes sense because it's a librarian conference and physical books are important. I didn't notice. I did notice a lot of technology for inventory in the books, and desks and counter space and things like that. what I didn't notice, other than the booth that was used for recording audio, sound, voiceovers, was audiobook technology. I didn't notice that, but I didn't get a chance to visit every booth either. So I was wondering if Bill or Ed, you either one had seen any technology like that. And also, part two was
I didn't see
audiobook
it.
coming out.
I didn't see any technology like that there, but I am exploring the idea of putting Assassin's Manuscript on audiobook, and our son, who's an actor in New York, and he's even in the final season of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, right now.
You've been watching it.
Yeah.
Great.
Anyway, he reads for audiobooks. That's one of his side jobs, and he's read some James Patterson novels, and he's given me a little coaching on what's involved and what the costs are. But I've noticed online there are many different groups that do audiobooks.
Yeah.
And they bring in professional readers like David and others, and they can do all different kinds of accents, and right. I have had a lot of people that I pitched the novel to who said, "Is it on audiobook? Because I listen to books when I exercise, or when I run, or ride my bike, or whatever."
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh.
And so I'm realizing there's a whole market for this book that I'm missing by not being on audiobooks. It's going to cost more. It's not cheap. I mean, we're talking thousands of dollars to get an audiobook made,
Right. And it, like you say, that's the thing. It's come down a little bit in the last few years, but it's still not, available for the majority of people. The cost, it's still cost prohibitive unless you know somebody with a studio, or somebody that's a film editor or an audio narrator, because people think, oh, you just pick up the book and read it. Well, no, that's not what happens.
Yeah.
You read and then you pause and stop, and then you reread because you misread something, and then you read some more, and then you read some more, and then you got to do it in chapters, and then it has to be saved in chapters and edited in chapters, because when somebody's reading it on their phone as an audiobook, they may get to chapter 3. Well, they don't want to start over at the front of the book. They want to hyperlink to chapter 4 and start at chapter 4 where they left off. Right. And so, so if you've got 10 chapters, you got to read 10 different things, and you got to create 10 different files, and you got to scrub 10 files, and you got to load 10 files, and they got to approve those 10 files. And then they say, oh, well, there's something wrong with your audio. And then they won't tell you which chapter it is. So you have to go back and scrub every file. I mean, we had to do that with Jay Stephen, our chef, and he had 72 chapters. So it was considerable time and work and effort, even though they were short chapters. He was only reading 2 or 3 pages, and he did the narration himself because he knew the message. He knew the copy, instead of having somebody that was unfamiliar, because there were a lot of terms, chef related and cooking terms and food terms and nutrition terms that somebody else would have had to get up to speed, and it might have been a lot harder for them to do it. Whereas Jay Stephen, he didn't have that hesitation, because he'd been doing it, 10, 15, 20, 30 years. So, but I think it's the next opportunity. It's what's that next revenue stream, and how many revenue streams can you add to your journey and to your author, and especially if you want to continue in the journey and have either more books or explore more options. We can always start with the paperback and ebook because it's easiest. Then we can go to hardbacks if you need hardbacks, and a lot of the libraries do want a hardback, especially if they've got younger kids, because they do tear up stuff. Yeah. And so it's harder to tear up a board book or a book that's got a hardcover on it versus a paperback cover. These guys across the hall from us, or across the aisle from us, were from France, and they had this, coating. They were doing a vinyl coating, and I'm sure, a lot of librarians use something like that for their,
you got that
books.
done on one of your books, didn't you, Bill?
Yeah, I had it done on mine. Yeah, it was really good. Hey, can I share just a couple of things that are related to this blog? Oh, Ed, do you want to say something else?
Yeah, I have to run. I have some people looking at me. But they keep looking at me like, let's go. So yeah, I definitely have to jump off, Liz. But thank you for inviting me in.
Ed,
right.
thank you so much.
Good to
Great
see
to
ya.
connect. Always a
Okay.
pleasure.
Yeah. Take care, Ed.
Okay.
What I was going to do is share a couple of things that I'm going to do this blog interview with this guy up in New York, who's now he's promoted 1,000 authors, including Dr. Ruth, Stephen Covey, all kind. And he had seen my novel at the London Book Fair at the same time we were in Austin, and he reached out and he said, "I'm really intrigued. I want to interview you." And so anyway, it's interesting. It's a different kind of interview. He gives you these questions and you write your answers. And then he has this blog, and he has like 3 million viewers to his blog. So that's going to be getting it out there. But I wanted to share just a couple of things from the kinds of questions. And one of them was, what advice or words of wisdom do you have for fellow writers other than run with a question mark? Which is kind of clever. And he had other things about how did you decide on your cover and this and that. So I came up with, let's see, 5, 6 points, but I'm not going to share all these. I just want to share a couple. The first one is to get your creative juices flowing. Let your mind go, putting down whatever comes, no matter how odd. You will discard some of it, but that's okay. The ideas at the beginning need to fly freely. Imagine your story idea as a cat. You're trying to figure out what makes the cat tick. Too many writers kill the cat, dissect it, then carry the limp parts into the story. Instead, put a mouse in front of the cat and see where the cat goes. And that's one of my little tips there. And then toward the end, I have quit worrying about how many books you're going to sell or how famous you're going to be. Just enjoy the journey of being a writer. If you do that, your story will sing the way it's supposed to, and your readers will love you for it. I had so much fun writing this novel that I never imagined it would be on sale in over 40 countries as it is now. The goal was always the hope that at least one person might enjoy it and learn something from it. So, I mean, these are just little tidbits. But he also asked, let me just share this. He asked, what trends in the book world do you see, and where do you think the book publishing industry is heading? And these comments are similar to things we have been saying just here on this show. It says, I said, people are never going to stop reading. They are never going to stop looking for great stories for escape, entertainment, inspiration, and information. So anyone who believes movies will replace books is delusionary. Story shapes our identity as human beings, and a story well told is worth 1,000 pictures, not the other way around. I do think indie publishing is improving, and writers in this vein who are good need to be recognized, even if they aren't represented by a major publishing house. Keep an eye on that. That's my little point there.
I love that sentiment, because the idea that there's, even in music, which I have a tendency to enjoy now and then, is that the independent artists are getting the tools necessary to continue to explore and expand their brand. And authors, much the same way, independent publishing and just being able to get through the process with some assistance and support, like what Liz has been doing for years, is really important for the industry and the storytelling overall.
Yeah. I also am going to have to drop off, but it's great to see you all.
We're at our time.
We're over time already, so
we went over a little bit, but we wanted to have everybody, jump in and just share some things. And well, Bill, we're certainly glad about your success there. We know book clubs are a big thing too. We're hoping, I don't know if you ever talked to Warren Johnson, but reach out to him if you haven't, or I'll try to get him on.
Send me his contact info, because I don't think I have it. And did you give him a copy of the book?
I didn't, but I took it. I took it 2 weeks ago, and I didn't see him. And then, of course, I didn't have it last week because I lost my keys, and I rode with TK, and so I didn't have my stuff because it was in the car, and
Okay.
And I didn't think to take it with me. And then, of course, I saw him, but he was talking to somebody else. And I kind of stood there for a little while and I kind of said, you know, we need to talk. And this other man had him captured and he couldn't get away. So, but I will
Send me his email and I'll follow up with him also. But you need to give him a book. That'll be good.
Yeah, I will. And then Joel too told me that they read it. Joel and Marlene, Joel Moore, that runs the Red Cross, and he thought it was very well done. And so I told him to go and do a review or write a review if you would for us. And
good.
And that you might
the
be
reviews help. The reviews really help. It's good seeing them popping up.
Popping up. Good. All right. Well, thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Bill. Have a wonderful
we'll
week.
wrap up, I guess, when Bill jumps off.
And you all have a good evening. Take care.
Take
all
care.
right. Bye-bye.
Right.
You will.
So that's
there
great.
you have it, Liz.
Yep. So we got a few comments. So that's good. They felt like it was worthwhile opportunity. I mean, I think everybody ought to go once to kind of experience it, to see it, to be involved. It's interesting. I got the numbers now after the fact about who attended, and there was a large number of elementary and more schools attended in Austin than public librarians. So that probably was part of the reason we didn't talk to as many people as maybe we did in Fort Worth, because I know in Fort Worth it was about 50-50. And in Austin, it seemed it was about 60-40 or maybe 70-30, 70 schools and 30%, 40% public. Whereas in Austin, it was, maybe the other way around, 60%, public and 40%, schools. So, you never know from year to year and from location to location.
Yeah.
I think maybe the fact that Dallas, Fort Worth or Houston are more urban areas, they have more surrounding cities and communities, whereas Austin and San Antonio kind of have a tendency to have neighborhoods, but it's all a part of Austin, whereas in Dallas, Fort Worth, it's Dallas, it's Irving, it's Duncanville, DeSoto, Balch Springs, Garland, Mesquite. We have all of these suburbs, and they're independent towns, and they have independent libraries and independent schools.
Yeah.
And so, that may be why we saw a different audience up in Fort Worth versus in Dallas in the past than we did in Austin. So
before we go away and wrap up, what's your final takeaway, Liz?
Well, I think, like you say, we need to follow up better. We need to plan a little better and have something to hand out, to give away, because that was the detriment. I did send feedback and say, you really ought to, instead of mixing the small businesses in with the big publishers, you really need to have separate areas. Because it's just really discouraging for a small author to be next to somebody where their publisher's giving away 100 books and there's a line of 100 people standing there waiting to talk to them, and you're only talking to 2 people.
Yeah.
Because you're not a part of a big publishing group. So I think there are some things they can do that way that would be more feasible for people and more encouraging. And then that would also, help those self-publishers be able to meet and greet each other a little better. Because when you're trying to fight through the crowd, and you don't know who's who, and there's all these people, it's a little bit, you get a little frustrated. Or you just
intimidated.
Yeah, you get intimidated. Or I'm just going back to my booth and hang out and maybe talk to somebody over there. And so, it was great fun. It was great. We had a great group of people go, and we got to spend time together. Wish we'd have spent more time with Ed and Kathleen. Was hoping to spend some time with them in the evening, but they had their friends come up from Houston, and they hadn't seen them in 5 or 6 years. So, you can't, you can't fault them.
Just being there, and it always goes quicker than we imagine. So,
right.
But
just like this show,
this show, we're going to wrap it up and make sure that we have it available for everyone that's out there that is looking to create their own author journey, and make sure that you have an opportunity to have a conversation with us about your next book or your first book, whatever the case may be. And we look forward to supporting and helping you on your author journey.
Adventure. So this is episode 36. I think it's actually episode 37, but 37, we're hosting Liz, Lawless, Russ Johns. Go out, check out our new book, Author Adventure, The 5 Secrets to success, the art and business of publishing. And we'll see you next week right here, 5 o'clock Central Standard Time, every Tuesday. And if not, call us, email us, follow us on social media, subscribe so you know what's going on. We'll see you next time.
Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.